Sensormatics Infusion Tag. It's a game changer for the tagging industry. A one-piece solution reducing the time it takes to tag and the risk that comes with pins for your guests and associates. Save time, save money, and reduce risk with this one-piece innovative design.
Hello, I'm Gus Downing, publisher and editor of the D&D Daily, and this is the LP News Network. We're here today at the Loss Prevention Research Council's Impact 2018 conference, being held at the University of Florida. This episode today is the last episode in a series of 9 designed to allow you to hear directly from the retail and solution provider members and leaders of the LPRC about the role, the impact, and the value this academic effort delivers to the retail industry, and also to allow you to consider membership and how you'd present it to your leadership team. We'd also like to thank Sensormatic for sponsoring this entire series and supporting this academic effort. So the next time you see a Sensormatic executive, make sure you thank them, as this series is for you and your retailer. So let's get started. Given the level of disruption going on in the retail industry, the increasing role of technology, the importance of brand reputation, and the impact of social media, the opioid epidemic, active shooters, and cybercrime is having on retail, it's never been as important as it is today to find and develop academic solutions that solve or at least help minimize enterprise risk. With that said, the LPRC is really the only academic resource we have available that's totally dedicated to the loss prevention, asset protection community here in the States. And our guest here are 3 members of the Board of Advisors who are helping steer the effort with Dr. Reed Hayes, the director of the LPRC, and his team. Joining us today is Brian Bazer, loss prevention for B&H Photo and chairperson of the Board of Advisors. Eric Buttlar, vice president asset protection at Best Buy and member of the Board of Advisors. And Shannon Hunter, VP loss prevention and sustainability at Office Depot and vice chair for the Board of Advisors. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
You know, Brian, let's start with you as the
Okay.
chairperson.
Sure.
You know, you've been involved for a number of years. I mean, what's the bottom line of why the LPRC is successful? And what are 2 or 3 of the things that have really driven that success?
Sure. Yeah, I guess it's been almost a decade now that I've been involved with the Loss Prevention Research Council. And first and foremost, I would say it's Dr. Reed Hayes' passion for providing research-based solutions and working with retailers and solution partners and manufacturers and bringing them together to really solve the problems of today and potential the problems of future. And I think so it's his passion, the team's passion, the LPRC, the Board of Advisors that are helping and assisting the guidance of that really is the engine that drives it. And then I think that dovetails into the kind of unique perspective that you just mentioned in the intro, which is the Loss Prevention Research Council is the only place where solution partners, retailers, government agencies can get together and really look at what's going on in the industry and provide real solutions for real problems.
You know, what's a couple of the top things strengths of the LPRC?
Sure. Well, number one is the research, right? I think that is the product. If you think about, from a retail standpoint, you have a product or a service that you sell, so to speak, and the research is for Loss Prevention Research Council. There's 18 years of research that's been done. You think this year alone, we've completed 40 projects, and with another 20 to be completed this year, so a total of 60 projects that are going to be completed this year alone from a research standpoint. And that's really the benefit, the value add that's critical. And then there's obviously the opportunity to interact with the solution partners and the government agencies, and that's key. And quick story, I remember in a previous role, I had to do some research in regards to coupon use and abuse. And the first call that I made was to Reed and said, hey, have you ever done a paper on coupon use and abuse? And he's like, sure, I think there's 3 in there. And so I grabbed my pen drive and loaded up the programs and pulled them up. And it was the foundation or the starting point for me as the leader to say, okay, how can I think about this from an industry standpoint? And then how do I then think about it from a company standpoint?
You know, Eric, you run a retailer that sells, the hottest retail theft commodities out there, electronics and technology. So how has the LPRC work product helped your box? And what would you say is the top few things you and your team have gained?
Well, first of all, we work very hard to make sure that they're not the hottest theft item out there. But the LPRC has been so helpful to me, especially as a new officer, to be able to rely on the resources of the LPRC, specifically the technology lab. In the last year, as we were making substantial infrastructure decisions, to be able to go into an environment where it's non-sales pressure and be able to get unbiased information about what is the newest, latest, and greatest out there and how can it benefit you. So that's probably one of the biggest opportunities that we've had.
Can you give us any particular wins or items that you came in and researched and how it benefited?
From a research standpoint, we've looked at specific things that we have to keep on the shelves, grab and go.
Okay.
And it's interesting because there were parallels with retailers that you wouldn't normally associate like a parallel with. So like grocery, for example. We have some of the same issues, just different products as it relates to theft on peg hooks and things like that. So being able to take the work that was already done with the LPRC and apply that to my business was amazing.
Kind of like human behavior.
Yeah.
Doesn't know any bounds of what they're stealing. It's basically the same regardless of the box.
Correct.
Yeah. How has it helped from a leadership development perspective? As it relates to leadership of yourself and senior leaders and your team members, going beyond just the research and the product.
I would say personally for me, to be a part of a board that's high functioning with a group of people that truly care about the industry, that's really meaningful to me. And then also to hear about the challenges that we all face as retailers and how we're all kind of working together to solve it and build meaningful relationships. We're all in the same world.
And the solution providers coming together. We're talking about competitors in the same room, but yet they've left it at the door, so to speak, in order to pursue research and basically try things, put them in trials, put them in the iChains and such.
Right.
That's rather daring for them.
It is, and the suppliers that have come in have been willing to listen to what are the problems that are out there and help collaboratively provide solutions.
That's excellent. Shannon, you've been heavily involved for years.
Right.
Because you've worked with John Voitila, a former chairperson of the LPRC and current senior vice president of Party City. So you have a deep knowledge of the benefits and how to maximize them from an individual, team, and corporate standpoint. So how does a senior LP leader or a corporate team member, get the most benefit? How do they use the LPRC? And what should they do to truly develop and get the most out of their investment, especially for a new person? How would you steer them?
Sure, and I think I've actually been involved with the LPRC for over 10 years now as well. So as a senior leader, I would tell you that you get what you put into it. So many people say that. This is a group that definitely that is true for. This is different than any other organization that I'm a part of or our company is a part of. And for me, as a senior leader, it's about building those relationships with my peers on the board of advisors, with other LPRC members, solution providers, manufacturers. Again, like was said before, you sort of, leave your ego at the door, leave, all those other things at the door, and we're really trying to solve problems together. And this group really does do that. So for a new member, I would just tell you that, you got to get engaged. If you can get engaged and you find other businesses, other retailers that have similar issues that you have, then you can find somebody that you can pick up the phone and ask them, and share best practices, find out what's going on in their world, talk to them about the problems that you have, and then again, we always talk about the research, right? That's just a no-brainer with the LPRC, and it's about leveraging that. So you want to leverage that as a new member. And I would tell you, as a corporate team member of mine or anybody in the field, it's really the same thing as me being the senior leader. It just it allows them to actually think of their business in a bigger scope of responsibility, because you're actually talking to other retailers and finding out problems that maybe you didn't know existed. So it helps you expand your knowledge base. So they're really developing their leadership skills and their technical skills.
A question for all three of you. Where does it go from here? I mean, how does the LPRC continue to drive results and impact teams, retailers, and solution providers? I mean, you just released 30 research papers.
Yes.
You've got, 3 chains going.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a SOC up in New York City.
Yep.
I mean, really, Reed and the team have done a heck of a job of bringing it where it is today. So where does it go from here?
That's a great question, and we actually have a roadmap committee that is actually working with Reed to look at that. What's the kind of the blue horizon, so to speak, for LPRC, and not just 3-5 years, but next generation when you think of loss prevention leadership. And I think the buzzword that we've been saying a lot recently, and you'll continue to hear, is really around community. So I know that the C in LPRC is for council, but I was joking with Reed about, we might have to think about changing that to community, because we're really looking at how do we branch out to other agencies. So whether it's law enforcement agencies or other state, local, federal organizations, other industry organizations, and really partner with them. I think the example that you mentioned too, the Fusion Center and the work that's being done in Baltimore, where not only you bring in retailers and solution partners, but then also government agencies in to supply that and support that. Really kind of expanding the scope of the work that's being done. And then you start thinking about, what if that's in Baltimore? What if that's in Chicago? What if that's in Florida? And all these other pieces really then starts really kind of cracking open the opportunities that the LPRC and the impact, expanding the impact that we could have across the industry. Not just from a loss prevention standpoint, but across the retail sector, but even beyond that.
Well, this morning's speaker on evidence-based policing
Yeah.
was absolutely fantastic. And
Absolutely.
I would think that would deserve a whole day in and of itself of, educating the group and showing them how sophisticated that has become and how much of a science they've developed that as well. So, Eric, what are you thinking?
Well, I think about just the last couple of years with the LPRC, and they have experienced unprecedented growth, both from a retailer and from a supplier standpoint. And at the foundation of that is what they do extremely well, which is provide data, unbiased data that helps retailers control loss, and that is the foundation of what I believe is fueling the growth. People want to be a part of an organization that's helping retailers in a substantial way.
Shannon?
We had a great session today. We had a strategic meeting of senior leaders across retailers, solution providers for the first time, and it was just a great session where we talked really about what does retail look like in the next 5 to 10 years. How can the LPRC help support that? We didn't have all the answers right now, but we have a process that we're committed to so that we can support our members the best way that we can. We know that it's omni-channel, multi-channel. Our customers don't want to just shop in the stores, don't just want to shop online. They do both, right? And you got to be able to use that as a retailer. So we really talked about how do we support our members and going forward in that. So it was a great session.
Well, and throughout the day of the filming of these episodes, we've covered little aspects in each one that is different and unique. So, the last one I have for you is relatively simple, but I'm just interested to hear your responses. Why should a retailer, why should a solution provider join? Bottom line.
For me, it's basically you've got evidence-based research that you can leverage. So you can utilize that. You can utilize the peer relationships. And then if you're engaged, you can actually use those two things and your engagement to actually contribute to your own organization at a much higher level.
Because you're learning from a research-based information and database and reports and such.
Absolutely. I've talked to you about this before. If you have humility, you're humble, and you're willing to learn, and this is an organization, if you're willing to listen, you're going to learn a lot, and you can utilize that to benefit your own organization.
Now, are you involved in a working group?
So I'm not specifically involved in a working group, but I'm very intentional about my team being involved in a working group. So we have probably 5 different members of my team that are involved in 5 different working groups. We actually bring them in to my leadership staff meeting to actually talk about that every once in a while. What are they learning from both a technical perspective, and what are they doing to help our organization, and then also from a developmental perspective.
And that's a year-long collaborative effort that has
Absolutely.
quarterly metrics and which they have to reach and such. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, it's monitored, it's managed. Did you select those groups for them, or did they have the freedom to select them on their own?
No, we actually gave all the working groups to our team, and they selected them on their own based on what they wanted to do, what we felt like we could get out of it from our organization. And the LPRC also does a great job in giving us metrics to understand how we're doing. And I think Office Depot is number 5, number 6 in participation
Yes.
with the working group. So again, we are very intentional about our team saying, you're going to participate. If you say you're going to participate, then I want you to participate and, again, stay engaged with the group.
Yeah,
Right.
the LPRC provides metrics back to the retailers that let them know kind of an engagement metric, so to speak, so that it helps the senior leaders really look at how they can best leverage this ROI, this expenditure, and to be members of the LPRC. I think for a retailer, quick adage would be, right, work smarter, not harder, and this gives you that opportunity to not have to reinvent the wheel and to leverage the wisdom of the crowd of the LPRC from the retailer standpoint. And from the solution partner standpoint, I would say that it's the voice of the customer. You could try to create product that you think would add value to the organization or to the industry, or you could just ask people or listen and work directly with them to develop the product.
Eric?
From the retailer standpoint, if you're looking to curb jump results, there's a whole lot of data that you can tap into without having to go back and reinvent the wheel. So, I mean, just in of itself, it's worth it from that standpoint. But if you have problems, like I've had problems that there hasn't been a solution for yet, you can engage the LPRC to help you identify what are the root causes, how do you go about what solutions may be out there that you weren't aware of, and leverage the team to do an actual research project for you.
Right. And the board is basically determining the projects and the research and such and helping steer that, correct? Of the direction they're taking with it.
Correct. So the board is actually divided into 4, there's 4 vice chair roles, and each vice chair actually has a committee of BOA members, and it's operations, so we help read with kind of the structure of the BOA, kind of the blocking and tackling of the operations side of the business. There's a finance committee that obviously handles the money side and helps read with the dues and those types of pieces and where we want to invest from an organization standpoint. There's a working group committee that really then kind of handles that the research component. And to your point, where do we focus our energy? What are we researching? What are we not researching? And then last but not least, there's a membership committee that focuses on, one, are we providing value to the existing members from a retention standpoint? And then how do we solicit and bring in new membership?
Well, and Sensormatic have been totally supportive of that.
Wonderful
I mean,
supporters.
just
Absolutely.
sponsoring
Yep.
this. And the lab, I believe they were instrumental in developing that as well. So
Very much so.
fantastic role. Gentlemen, thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
guys.
Once again, we'd like to thank Sensormatic for sponsoring this entire series. And please, if you would thank them directly, we'd appreciate it. As LPRC is producing, a number of research projects for the organization, we'd like for you to be able to communicate to, Sensormatic and thank them. So Because when it comes to budget time, the LPRC's research can help you and provides the provenance that can tip the scales and get it approved. And as this wraps up the LPRC's second season, we certainly hope these episodes and the executives who shared their firsthand knowledge helps you make the decision to become a member and contribute to the only academic effort in the U.S. Because quite frankly, as a journalist that spends his days reading publications from around the world, I can tell you that I think we've got the best research vehicle in the world for retail loss prevention right here at the University of Florida. So thanks for watching, and until next time, let's keep them all safe out there.